2016, held here at the historic Tower of London. What a great venue we've chosen to discuss the subject of protecting your crown jewels. And just like the cloud that needs to provide millions of businesses and users access to corporate data and services, the Tower of London needs to provide millions of visitors secure access to these crown jewels. It's a business requirement of the monarchy to provide public access to these national treasures, and today we'll discover just how they've done that so successfully, and what lessons we can take forwards in the ever-increasing challenge of securing our corporate data and cloud services. I believe that we're the first to host an event at the Tower of London focused on information security and crown jewels protection, and I'm sure that we will not be the last. We had a great turnout last year and an even better one this year. All of our events continue to be well supported, so thank you everyone very much for turning out today. And in the spirit of our mantra of continuous improvement, I hope we're going to put on a show that's even better than last year. I'm going to introduce you to the team shortly, but before I do, I would like to briefly review the focus of last year's event. ArtShock 2015 was held at the Churchill War Rooms with the focus on cyber threat and security incident management. We were really trying to communicate that companies should really start to get themselves ready for the inevitable. ArtShock was held soon after events at Sony, and sadly, the first terror attack on Paris. What has become clear that during 2015 is that the accuracy of attacks on corporations is at an all-time high. And sadly, so are the terrorist attacks we've seen in the past 12 months. The terrifying accuracy and precision at which attacks are executed means that both corporates and national security are globally behind the curve. The adoption of cloud, a focus of today's discussion, is growing at an enormous rate. In fact, the compound annual growth rate is over 20%. That's about 6 times higher than the whole of the IT market. So it's throwing up a whole host of issues, and we're going to discuss some of these today. But firstly, the crown jewels. The Tower of London was founded by William the Conqueror in 1066 and originally was built as a royal palace and defence system to protect London. But today is home to more than 23,500 crown jewels worth an estimated £20 billion. A key fact that since the 14th century, when the jewels were moved from Westminster Abbey, not one attempt to steal them has been successful. So whichever way you look at it, the security strategies, plans, focus and playbooks have been tested and executed almost perfectly. This isn't supposed to be a history lesson, but our focus using the Tower of London as a metaphor to protect your crown jewels. Clearly this slide focuses on the corporate data asset and includes your IP, client information, financial information, or even your strategic plans. But we also need to consider services and their availability to your business. You may have many more valuable assets, maybe a Picasso in the boardroom. But I guess the point is that depending on the value of that asset, there'll be an insurance policy there that will meet the cost of its replacement. However, its loss is unlikely to affect your share price, reputation, or compliance, nor will it result in a hefty fine. I think you'll all know where I'm going with this. Today, your corporate data assets have become highly tradable commodities in the cyber criminal community, and more often than not, they are very easily accessible. I would be curious to know what insurance payout the average mid-market company would receive if you were found to have unpatched vulnerable systems that were the cause of your breach. I say this because there is a term called due care in every cyber insurance policy, and the definition is legally very complex. It is also interesting that the CEO of Sony said the insurance payout covered all of their costs, reported at circa $100 million. I personally find this quite hard to believe. However, I'd like to pause there for a moment and go all the way back to May the 9th, 1671, and this chap called Colonel Thomas Blood, who did have an almightily good crack at attempting to steal these crown jewels. Colonel Blood befriended what they may call in today's IT security terms, socially engineered Mr. Talbot Edwards, the protector of the crown jewels. Having built up a trusted relationship with Edwards, Colonel Blood suggested a meeting between his nephew and Talbot's daughter, Soon after arriving to see the crown jewels, and once the door to the jewels was open, Blood knocked Edwards unconscious and he stabbed him. They stole the crown, the orb, and the sceptre. Blood flattened the crown and stuffed it in his bag. The orb went down his pants, or I guess what they would call in those days breeches. The sceptre was too long, and quite unbelievably, they sawed it in half so it would go in the bag. However, they never made it out of the tower, and they were arrested by the Iron Gate. The next part I couldn't quite believe, but the king, instead of having his head off, awarded Blood a full pardon and a load of land in Ireland worth over £500 a year, which in those days is an absolute fortune. So who says crime doesn't pay? We're going to get onto the 2015 cybercrime numbers later. But since then, there have been no successful attempts on the jewels, not even a bungled attempt Hatton Garden style. So why have the crown jewels, worth an estimated £20 billion, not received more attention from organised criminals? Well, firstly, they sit behind a centuries-old fortress designed to protect London, one of the most powerful economies in the world. They are physical assets, few in number. They are rarely located outside of the Tower. The Tower of London is completely walled in. The only entrances are through the gates. The crown jewels are actually guarded by the army who live at Waterloo Barracks, which is built to accommodate over 1,000 men. Every street, every path is guarded by sentries 24/7, 365 days of the year. After dark, the grounds are openly and heavily patrolled by guards with automatic weapons. Recent updates and improvements to the Tower of London, especially covering security and fire safety, took over 3 years to complete. I guess 3 years to improve security at the Tower of London seems reasonable to me, and the investment focused on the protection of just over 23,500 assets. The budgets are undisclosed, but given the level of physical security on site, let alone the technical security budget, I'm sure that we'll run into tens, if not hundreds of millions of pounds. Conversely, in the corporate world, since the credit crisis, investment in security at the rate required has been behind the curve. But the change in technology has been nothing short of remarkable, driven largely by the step change in the way in which we consume information. In 1952, IBM manufactured its first large-scale mainframe, and since then, we went on to mini-computers, PCs, followed by LANs, WANs, data centers, and now we're in this transformation period between the legacy data center and the new software-defined data centers, private clouds, and of course, the cloud and its many service providers. This throws up a whole host of issues, not least application performance, complex support models, DR, business continuity, ownership and accountability, and a lack of visibility of network performance, and of course, security. In addition, businesses want their employees to be able to gain high-performance, secure access to business applications and services on any device, anywhere, anytime. So solving some of these challenges is really very complex, especially in a time when the incidence of cybercrime is at an all-time high. It's headline news on a regular basis, front page of the daily newspapers, and it's firmly in the boardroom. And progressively, we all know more and more people who have been the successful target of a financial cybercrime. It's big news, but what about the solution? Did anyone hear about the TalkTalk breach? For sure, the boundaries have moved and the game has changed. I believe that the appropriate use of security monitoring integrated into the fabric of your information security plan, delivered by your people, tools, and processes, is going to be essential in identifying relevant security threats to your business, its people, and its assets. In 2016, I believe all CXOs should make fighting cybercrime a priority, and it should become an integrated part of the business strategy, business continuity planning process, and ensure that information security is central to the fabric and culture of the business. But really, it's about getting the basics right first, taking a less is more approach to security, and understand your most critical assets and protect them, just like the Tower of London. And certainly be able to monitor and report and remediate threats or attacks against these crown jewels quickly. The spend on cloud is going to reach $127 billion by 2018. Clearly, as more data and systems are moved to the cloud, there will be more attempts to compromise them. Planning for an incident, especially if you've been warned, is critical. However, conversely, we have very few cloud services that we're monitoring on behalf of our clients. In addition, there are continuing concerns around encryption of data in the cloud. So I guess the question is that what impact have cloud services on the visibility of who is accessing what data and what is happening to it? It is a very dangerous assumption to make that you'll have the same level of visibility within the cloud. So in my opinion, the market has some maturing to do, and I would certainly consider requesting if logging was available certainly early on in your RFI or RFP process for a cloud service. So I think we'll all agree that the boundary is somewhat stretched, and if you add into that the myriad of other third parties you deal with that may hold sensitive corporate information, then the due diligence of these boundaries has become an essential part of the challenge. As enterprise assets are no longer within your known perimeter, the move to the cloud and mobile devices and social networks has stressed and fractured the perimeter as we know it. As BYOD and mobile working grows, security risks from within are expected to grow by 45% by 2017. Remote workers will be 31% more likely to generate higher traffic than staff based in the office by 2018. And 52% of businesses are struggling with managing application performance, availability, and security as a result of disjointed and complex and hard to manage environments. And one of the most important things to remember is that the criminals are getting better at knowing your assets and your business processes, and certainly you. That's it from me. So in summary, I've talked about protecting your crown jewels using the Tower of London as my storyline, the importance of focusing on your most valuable corporate assets, cyber insurance, can everyone like Sony expect their costs to be covered, this period of transformation to the cloud, and the complexities we face securing it and our boundaries, and cyber criminals and the expected increase in targeted attacks we expect to see in 2016. So on that final note, I would like to introduce our speakers. First on, we have Tim Greaveson, the Chief Cybersecurity Strategist at HP Enterprise, who will review the Ponemon 2015 Cost of Cybercrime Study. Following Tim, you'll hear from Mark Chaplin, the Head of Strategic Projects and Tools at the Information Security Forum. He will talk about protecting those crown jewels. Raghu Nandakumara, the Cloud Security Engineering Lead at Citi, will discuss clouds and banking. And Kevin Whelan, ITC CTO and author of our Threat of the Week blog, will be joined by Gareth Lindell-Wise, our Chief Information Security Officer, and they will pass their opinion on the Real Threat Horizon 2016. And in the traditional way that ITC are being a little more out there, we have an illusionist and mind reader, Sean Alexander, who will perform some amazing trickery between each of the breaks. So be prepared to be socially engineered by this incredible performer, as he will borrow and steal your secrets and assets. Thank you.